honors, so it's great to have you here. It's an exciting day for us. I want to take a moment to say a word or two. You'll also hear from me throughout the day with directions and guidance on where you should be next. First of all, thank you for coming and participating. We had a wonderful program yesterday that was geared for students that was called Going Global. I brought in one of my past keynotes for this event, Lee Zach, and it was fabulous. Where's Lee? Raise your hand. Former director of the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, and we had a great day learning all about different pathways for international law. You've probably heard the term passion project lately. This is my passion project. I care deeply about offering you concrete mechanisms to make changes in the job you have, or to find confidence for you to go after the job you want, and for you to know that you have found your support system here at Northeastern, people who have your back, who can help guide you. I would also add that being a strong woman means lifting up those around you, and that is part of our mission, building strong women. So if you can support us financially, please do so. If you can hire a co-op student, please do so. If you can mentor someone after today, please do so. Each year the conference gets a little bit bigger. We may outgrow this room at some point. I can assure you it'll be a wonderful day. When we began planning for this year's conference, we selected the theme, Anything is Possible. I was envisioning our country would be led by President Hillary Clinton. Alas, it was not to be this time, but I do still believe in possibilities and that your futures are limitless. NUSL now has the Massachusetts Attorney General. Wow. Female U.S. Senator, Maggie Hassan. Wow. In the right direction, we're heading there. This program began about 12 years ago when our founding mother, Professor Emerita Judy Brown, and our team organized a advisory group and began to plan for a large-scale conference. Where's Judy? We've always had a significant percentage of women graduates in our classes. The class of 2019, we enrolled 66% women. So you can see why this is my passion project. Through the years, I've heard many testimonials about how Judy shaped the lives and as well as mentored our younger female faculty members when she was here. She taught everyone what the rules were and sometimes how to skirt them. She's shaped countless women's lives. She's mentored female professors, and they remain indebted to her. In recent years, the Jim and Judy Brown Fund has significantly supported this conference. I would like to take a special moment to thank Judy and Jim. Please stand up, Judy and Jim. I didn't tell you that you can also support the conference through gifts to the Jim and Judy Brown Fund. Forms can be found in your registration packet. Make sure you go through that entirely. Another person I would like to publicly acknowledge is Gina Perini, President and CEO for Somos. Where's Gina? Yay! On the advisory board for all 12 years and served as conference chair and guided our programming. She helps out enormously behind the scenes, and she reached the top of her game with her employer, which was incredibly early in her career. She began to support this conference as soon as she could as a major supporter. And incidentally, she's also encouraged her former employer, GTC, to help sponsor us. Gina, thank you. Happy birthday. Where's GTC too? Who's here from GTC? Each of our additional sponsors, Kelly Bonnaby with Wilson, Marino, and Bonnaby. Jackie Kugel with Morgan, Brown, and Joy. Thank you, guys. Christina Linders with Trident Legal. Thank you, Christina. Leslie Duchani with Duchani Law. Vanessa with Virtus Stream. She has a Houston area right around this time. She made sure she flew back for this and maybe missed some meetings for us this year, so thank you. Lisa Warren with Morris, Barnes, Brown, and Pendleton. Where's Lisa? Lisa Trainer, Managing Member of GTC Law Group. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Your support helps us immensely. This conference is now self-funded, which allows it to continue in perpetuity. So that's fabulous. Our advisory group, I'd like to ask you all to stand up and get a big round of applause. Many of them are also sponsors, which means they believe in this from the heart. So advisory group members, please stand up. Kathy Morris, Cindy Reed. Thank you all, Kelly Bondy, for all your time and dedication. I would like to thank Stacey Velarde, who partners with me and does high-level fundraising for this conference and has always been incredibly supportive of my passion project. For Stacey. I want to thank Megan DeMarsh. Please stand up. Megan Kendall's love. She does an amazing job, and we definitely could not do this without her. Last but far from least, I'd like to publicly thank our two conference chairs. Cleo Lachamp, please stand up. Cleo, come on up here. We have all spent an entire year crafting the program for you with relevant, useful information. We started a year ago in a restaurant drinking way too much coffee. Cleo traveled in from Washington, D.C. to begin the planning process several times. Cleo is managing attorney in the office of the General Counsel at FERC in Washington, D.C. She also helps me with the Washington, D.C. regional chapter of the Environmental Law Conference in much more, and she's just a wonderful human. Thank you, Cleo, for all you did this year. Margie, Director of Professional Development and Alumni Advising at Harvard's Law School. Still a good school. Margie, had a challenging year and made this a #1 priority. Put all that aside, she is smart, thoughtful, had a million great ideas, brought in a lot of people from her class to speak, and they both brought important perspectives, and I'm so appreciative to have the chance to work closely with both of you. Please come up, take a big bow. We're going to do a quick photo. Thank you, Paul. I turn it over to you, and then they will introduce me, Paul. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, Miel, and the advisory group, and the sponsors, everyone who made this day possible. It's really incredible. This is the ninth annual conference, and I'm so excited to be here because I'm living proof that this works, this makes sense, and we need this every year. 9 years ago, I was finishing my 1L year at Northeastern, and Judy Brown invited me to a women's summit. And I had no idea what to expect. I was getting ready for exams, but I made the time, and I'm so glad that I did. That year, there was a panel called the Working Women's Tool Chest, and they talked about a range of issues from negotiating a raise to the importance of a mentor. And although I was not yet a working woman, I knew that I was gathering the skills that I would need once I entered the workforce. And I came back again my 2L and my 3L years, and I've returned every year, I think, except one since then. So no matter what your level is or what brought you here today, I really hope that you will all be active participants, because you will learn things, we will share important things that will be really, really beneficial for younger generations as well. This conference is about meeting new people, it's learning new tips, it's sharing your experiences, and for me, this has really, really been essential for my career. So I hope today you leave here with a new friend, a new story, and that you'll feel better equipped to face the situations that we encounter every single day. I urge you to come back next year and every year to continue to fill your own tool chest. So thank you.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. So excited to have you all here at this conference. Cleo, for Cleo, she has been a regular, and for me at the conference, and for me, this is really just my second conference. I didn't come 9 years ago. Last year was my first year, and it was so lovely and energizing to reconnect with old classmates, meet new friends, make new networks, and so I just encourage you all to do the same thing. Last night at the speakers dinner, one of the things that we did, Kelly Douglas from class of 92 stood up and said, we all need to promote each other as women, as business people, as networking resources. And we all stood up and sort of said, hey, here's what I do. And if you need labor and employment counsel, you should come to me. And it became a real business networking event, but in the absolute best possible sense, not in the sleazy, like, here's my business card sense. And I would just encourage you to all do that today and not be afraid. If you are a business person, if you're general counsel, if you're practicing law in the private sector, ask everybody else for business. It's how it works, and I just think personally Northeastern's been such an amazing resource for me throughout my career, and I always look back very fondly on my time at Northeastern, and this fall will be my 25-year reunion. So so I would just encourage everybody to dive into the day and don't be afraid to make networks and make it about business as well as personal. The business is personal, and this is sort of our golf course, if you will, where the guys get the business. So reach out, take advantage of it, and then stay in touch afterwards. And with that, our fabulous Dean, Jeremy Paul.
Let's start by giving Margie and Cleo another round of applause. I hope we can all take a minute to just look around the room. This is fantastic, right? I mean, what an amazing group. I'm so delighted to be able to be here. So before I do anything else, Miel, you thanked pretty much everyone. Where'd you go? On the list, those who are sponsors are all actually listed in the book, so if you missed the run-through, please do check and find them during the break. Thank you. But your passion project is now everyone's passion project, and we're all just so extraordinarily grateful to you. Look at this. I mean, you should be so proud. So it is true what you said, that the context and climate that we expected here is not what we thought when we started putting this together. In earlier years, I would come to the group of students and say, you need to look back to TV shows like Mad Men to figure out how grotesquely sexist the country once was. My own mother graduated law school in 1952. She was one of 12 women out of 300 students. And when she went interviewing for a job, the male partners would pull out their cigars, put their feet on the desk and say, we wouldn't really feel comfortable having a woman in the office because we curse a lot. And we would just feel bad cursing in front of a woman. And of course, when you look out at the secretarial pool, all women, right? But the cursing for them was I guess, okay. And so she would just be so proud to see where our country has come over these many years. It truly is fantastic. But that's how I would have felt last year. But now, right, when you look at the newspapers and you see those photographs in the White House with a wall of men, almost all white, it should make our blood boil, and we need to do something about it. And I can't imagine any group more likely to get that accomplished than you. And I can't imagine an event more likely to spur connections and push people forward. I know we have at least 3 people at the event who are presidential appointees who lost their positions soon after the turnover in the administration. And I'm sure that someday there'll be another administration and many of you will be back working in that front. But in the meantime, right, we have state government, and it is truly my pleasure and honor to be able to present our keynote speaker this morning. I had a conversation last night with Sarah Peck, I don't know if she's here yet, in which we were talking about if you were building a team of lawyers, what would be the credentials or characteristics that one would want. And she was quite eloquent in suggesting that the kind of thing that you normally talk about in terms of academic credentials and book smarts were not nearly as important as what she thought were the 4 key ingredients of a top lawyer. Bold, creative, passionate, and energetic. And when I think of those characteristics, it's hard for me to think of someone who's more personifies them than our Attorney General. So thank you very much for being here. We're delighted to have you. Of course, she has the academic accomplishments as well, a graduate of Harvard and Northeastern University School of Law. Madam Attorney General, when people talk about you, I think too often I hear people saying, well, look what she's going to do next. And you know what? Whatever you do next, we're going to be all behind you. But we're already so proud of what you're doing now. It's just so terrific. In her office, she's focused heavily on the opioid crisis, on a community engagement team. As head of the Civil Rights Division, she worked hard to bring down the Defense of Marriage Act and on marriage equality. In her own office, she practices what she preaches by providing more paid medical leave and family leave than any AG before her. So you're already a star in our book, and we're very grateful to you for being here. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. It is great to be back at Northeastern. Thank you so much, Dean Paul, for that kind introduction. I want to thank Neil in particular for her vision and her advocacy, not only on this particular initiative and project, but on so many fronts. She's just added so much to our law school. So thank you to you and your wonderful team, to Margie and Cleo for co-chairing what looks to be a fantastic conference. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you yesterday, but it looked great, and I know today promises to be great as well once we get past your keynote speaker. And of course, a special thanks to my con law professor, Judy Brown, and Jim. Thank you for funding and supporting this effort, but of course, more importantly, for the foundation you provided to so many people. I see so many familiar faces in the room, some I went to school with, others who went before or came after, all of whom I know benefited greatly from your wisdom and knowledge. And it's wonderful to see you here today. It's also intimidating to be here today to speak in front of former professors or classmates who I'm sure still shake their head wondering how she got this particular gig. But I'm grateful for this particular gig. And I feel like Northeastern was a place that absolutely prepared me with the most essential foundation in terms of how to think about the law and its application in very, very real ways. Today, I run a 600-person law firm here in the state, and we cover a variety of matters in state and federal courts. It's been a very full and fast-paced couple of years. It's been a particularly fast-paced 119 days, and I still think it seems like decades. But it's actually just been 3 months. You know, when I think about a few things, I guess it's that the Women in the Law Conference. I've tried to make that real in my office. I'm very proud to say that my first assistant, my deputy attorney general, my state solicitor, and many of my bureau chiefs, including Melissa Hoffer, my classmate, class of '98, who heads our Energy and Environment Bureau, are all women. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm really proud, too, that we created for the first time in our office a position, the Director of Organizational Development and Diversity, headed by our own April English, class of 2000. I'm not going to call them out, but I have colleagues here I see sprinkled in this room from the office. They get a pass today on whatever they were supposed to be working on. But they are working incredibly hard, along with all the folks back in the AG's office on a variety of fronts, and I'm really grateful to them. Mihail talked about the prominence that women have always played in this institution, both among students and faculty, and that's wonderful. I know firsthand the support that Northeastern has provided in its efforts to promote and support women entering the legal profession and beyond. And it's against that backdrop that I offer my comments today. We are indeed here at a challenging time for our country, but I think this is a real time of opportunity too, as we go forward. Many months ago, you didn't contemplate this, Dean, I know. I didn't contemplate this. I certainly didn't contemplate that I'd be coming before you at this time, having sued the president a number of times. Yesterday, we just intervened in a suit to defend the ACA. It's become common practice, also common practice in our office. This is certainly an administration that is going to keep us very busy for at least the time to come. But my first point is that I think this is an incredibly important time for lawyers in our country. An incredibly important time. An incredibly important time for women lawyers as well. Now more than ever, we need to fight for the rule of law. The United States is a nation of laws and traditions which have only been developed and defined over time through considerable hard work and struggle and cases. When you think about concepts like equal protection and due process and civil rights and administrative procedure, all of these things that we learned from folks like Judy Brown in law school and then have seen and worked on, some of us in our careers, these are really, really important foundational principles. And right now, some of those very core principles that indeed make up the very foundation of our democracy are threatened in very real ways. They're threatened when the President of the United States can brag about assaulting women. They're threatened when we have an Attorney General who doesn't support the Violence Against Women Act. They're threatened when the President and his administration regularly attack and denigrate members of the judiciary and the legal system itself. They're threatened when the President of the United States fires the people investigating him simply for doing their jobs. This is why, more than ever, we need to fight for the rule of law. We need to fight to uphold the Constitution, and there's never been a better time for lawyers in our country. We also need to fight for the checks and balances that are built into this system. We have the 3 different branches, that's important. We also have the press. And it may sound funny for you to hear a politician advocate for the free press and media, but I believe deeply in this. You know, as we have seen in this world of alternative facts, where it's hard to distinguish a White House press conference that you watch on C-SPAN or you watch on SNL, we need to ensure that journalists are out there with the resources to do their jobs. It's absolutely imperative to our democracy. We also need to fight for truth. You know, I know, especially in my business now, there's some gray and there's some spin. We understand that. But there are also facts. And here, I think in Massachusetts, as I look around this campus and this region, I think about our knowledge-based economy. I think about everything that has really enabled, not just for Massachusetts, not just for this country, but for the globe. The importance, the imperative of science, data, truth, research. It is a huge problem, folks, when climate science data is removed from the EPA's website, which it was. It's a huge problem when the Office of Science and Innovation dwindles from 150 scientists to its current composition of 4 in just 3 months. It's a huge problem when the president picks as his chief scientist at the USDA, the department that manages research on everything from climate change to nutrition, when he appoints a talk radio host and climate skeptic with no science background whatsoever. When they propose to cut NIH funding, these are serious issues. And they're serious issues for Massachusetts in particular. That's why I think it's incumbent upon all of us, whether we're from research or academia or business or in the nonprofit sector, hospitals, health systems, we got to do everything we can to band together and collectively advocate for truth, for science, for research, and for the expenditure of resources in that direction. Our, I believe, economic lifeblood and livelihood really, really depends on it. And you think about the diseases that are out there, the work to be done on so many different fronts. Lives depend on this. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the role of the state AGs at this time. We've gotten a little bit more attention of late. We're a little bit more in the news simply because we're able to do things now that we were always able to do, but I think the need to do them was never as prominent. Here in Massachusetts, look, I'm trying to use my office to advance equality and opportunity for women, and that continues to be a top priority for me and the team. Last year, I want to say I worked with the legislature to help actually draft and then pass a first of its kind equal pay bill. I know that many of you in this room, particularly those who work hard for the Women's Bar Association, were really instrumental in seeing that happen, but it's a terrific law. We worked with the employer community as well to craft something that really is unique. This year, we're committed to passing a new law that will add important new protections for pregnant women and nursing mothers in the workplace, which is also important. We're also focused on combating sexual violence. We've created a cross-divisional effort in our office around human trafficking and have been very active at addressing the exploitation, in particular of girls and women in communities, rural, urban, and suburban around our state. We've worked to ensure that survivors of sexual assault never receive a bill for undergoing a sexual assault exam. And most recently, over the last year and a half, we've worked in partnership with the New England Patriots in forming a terrific program called Game Change, using Northeastern Center for Sport and Society's curriculum, Mentors and Violence Prevention Program. We are in 100 high schools across the state teaching young boys and girls about how to recognize the signs of dating violence, relationship violence, stopping, and then empowering them with the emotional competencies to be able to respond to and address those issues. And my office continues to focus on the major challenges facing our state, from accessing mental health services, substance use services, dealing with the opioid epidemic, and addressing the national crisis of student loan debt. So we're working on a lot of fronts here in Massachusetts, but we have certainly found ourselves in the position of working on issues that have even greater relevance nationally. It's clear that advocacy from the states is going to be essential in protecting the advances that we've made, in protecting women and families, not just here in Massachusetts, but all across this country. And I just want to mention a few. This year, we marked the 10th anniversary of Massachusetts versus EPA. That, of course, was the landmark Supreme Court decision that ruled that the EPA had the authority and, in fact, the duty to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. Those same fights are even more urgent today, especially with an EPA headed by my former colleague, Scott Pruitt, whose sole prerogative as AG seemed to be about dismantling the agency that he now heads by assuming them continuously. But we're prepared to advance and use the very same arguments that we advanced as an office in that case many years ago when it comes to making sure we don't lose ground on the progress that we've made in important regulations and measures to address climate change. And this is really important. I talked to a lot of people about the law and what's happened with regulation, but know that this is where the market economy is moving anyways. And you just need to look no further than Massachusetts to see that. In 2016, the clean energy economy in Massachusetts represented over $11 billion and growing, and more than 100,000 jobs. So whether the president and Scott Pruitt want to acknowledge it or not, that is where the market is moving, not just here, but all across this country. But if the federal government can roll back or seeks to roll back standards that have been put in place for fuel efficiency and energy efficiency, not only does it put our investments at risk, it puts our future at risk. And you see, some of you may have read about some of the investments that, for example, China is making right now in the solar industry. So we have work to do, and we need to be prepared to stand up and fight for our interests here in Massachusetts and our global interests. And as AGs, we've already intervened in a number of actions in this space, and will continue to be involved in defending regulations that have been put in place the last few years, defending the Clean Power Plan, and whatever efforts need to be made to ensure the health and the safety and the betterment of this planet. We also had to jump in early on, you saw, when it came to the travel ban. Now, I remember I was meeting with a group of AGs, and I flew back into Logan the very afternoon that travel ban went into effect. And I asked to be taken immediately over to Terminal E, the international terminal. And it was about 4:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday, and it was this incredible sight. As I got on and I saw lawyers, volunteer immigration lawyers who left kids' soccer games and everything else to rush to the airport, ready to serve. And among them was I was really proud. There were Northeastern folks there, I think about Heather Younts in particular, among others who were there ready to serve. You saw firsthand the danger of abuse of power and authority in a really thoughtless way. Not only did the travel ban undermine public safety, it's also served to undermine public health, and I'll tell you what I mean. Look, you know that we took action immediately because I spent that evening and over the days that followed on the phone, not only with immigrant advocacy organizations and refugee organizations, but also with the heads of our major businesses, technology and life sciences companies worried about their employees, our major teaching hospitals worried about students and professors studying overseas or research fellows who may not be able to continue on with work. And certainly heads of colleges and universities. I think about the fact that here at Northeastern alone, 20% of this year's undergraduates are foreign born. So this was a very big deal for Massachusetts, and it's why you saw this unprecedented level of state AG effort in bringing lawsuit after lawsuit to take this on. We won not once, we won twice, and we'll continue to fight to ensure that the Constitution is upheld. And that, I think, is a really good example of the role of the rule of law, the role of lawyers, and the role of, yes, so-called judges in our system. On another front, we've been really active is healthcare, and here in Massachusetts, we are blessed with the very best hospitals and doctors and healthcare in the United States. Now we see that Congress is taking steps to rip healthcare away from millions of Americans. And we know this is disproportionately going to affect families and women all across this country. And I'm not just talking about defunding Planned Parenthood. That is just the tip of the iceberg. The latest proposals, of course, would jeopardize funding for Medicaid, and there are nearly 300,000 Massachusetts residents who now benefit from Medicaid expansion. In 2022 alone, we know it would cut well over $1 billion in federal funding for Mass Health, with greater losses in the years to follow. This is a huge deal. What was proposed would absolutely blow a hole through our Mass Health system and ruin healthcare as we know it here in this state. And it would disproportionately affect children. Think about the fact that 40% of Medicaid recipients in this state are kids. 50% of Medicaid recipients nationwide are kids. So when they're talking about and they're down the road of gifting themselves another tremendous tax cut for the wealthy, which is all of what that last proposal was all about, they're doing it on the backs of the most vulnerable among us in our country, children. So that's wrong. We're going to be prepared to stand in and defend what needs defending, and to stand up for the vulnerable, to stand up for children, to stand up for the poor, and to stand up for what really is a right in this country, needs to be a right in this country, and that is the ability to access the most basic health care for yourself and for your family. So my message is clear. You saw us intervene yesterday in a case where the House of Representatives was trying to sue to take away the authority of the ACA, essentially, and we don't have particular confidence that this administration is going to do its job in defending the law. So that's why we intervene, joining other states in a lawsuit to stand up for the ACA. And I will continue to make sure that as an office, we look at every legal angle appropriately available to us to use to challenge efforts to roll back progress in this area. And this brings me to my last point about the need for more women, not just in the legal profession, but everywhere. And I think that I feel that now in an even greater way after November than ever before. Look, we lack female representation on all fronts. When I go into boardrooms, when I go meet with people in C-suites, when they come into my office, look at Congress, look at state legislature, look at everywhere. There are just too few women in the room. And this has a consequence. I mean, how upsetting was it to look at that picture from the Rose Garden a few weeks ago with all those men standing around making decisions about our health care. It's not that we don't want men in the room, we want them in the room, but women need to be in the room, and women need to be represented because presence translates into policy. And for far too long, the absence, the dearth of women out there and at the table has resulted in really bad policy, unfortunate policy for women, and as a result, families across this country. You see it in your lives, we see it in our paychecks, we see it on so many fronts. So a couple thoughts about what we need to do. I think that wherever we have the power and the opportunity to hire women, to promote women, and to stick with them, do it now more than ever. Mentor younger women at your company, at your firm, in your office, and if they aren't advancing, ask why not and see what you can do to aid in their professional development. They're not going to reach out to you, we know that necessarily, that's not necessarily going to happen. So make sure that you're affirmatively reaching out to them for those opportunities. When your organization is hiring a new executive or a new manager or a new chief, make sure that you're asking how many women are being considered for that role. Just ask the question. Sometimes just by asking the question, you can provoke real change. When you hear about a judicial opening, are you finding women attorneys in your network to actually apply for these positions? And when there is an opening for any election, I don't care if it's for the legislature or Congress or a school committee or library trustee, run. And if you don't want to do it, find somebody who will and do everything you can to support it. Because I come away with a view that that is what we need. We really need more women at the table making decisions. As you look across this country, and as I look across this country at what has happened in school committees, in state legislatures, on up, we are not where we need to be. And I fundamentally believe that change is not going to come from the top down. Change is going to come from the bottom up. And the good news is, and this is why this is actually a time of tremendous opportunity, it's up to the likes of all of us. Everyday people in local engagements, in ways large and small, finding ways to step out and make a difference. I think about a woman who I met recently who's been so concerned about what's happening on the immigration front. And she doesn't have money to write a check to organizations like the ACLU, but you know what she's doing? She's going afternoons to teach ESL to new refugees to this country. Everybody can find a way to give and to have an impact and to make a difference. And touching the life of a single person, you don't know, you can't predict the ripple effect that that's going to have. So I encourage all of us in this time when we wake up dismayed, I understand, at whatever the latest news is, know that in this time I think we have a tremendous opportunity. I know that because I'm around the state and around the country. I see the energy. I see the desire for change. I see the desire on the part of people to get involved. And yeah, there's some understandable cynicism out there. But I think that truly we have an opportunity. And you know, with your degrees and with our background as lawyers, as advocates, as people who probably were in some way inclined towards law school because we believed in notions of social justice. We believed that we could use the law and that the law was there for a purpose to do good and to ensure the kind of society that we want to live in this country. We've got that opportunity. All of you are leaders in this room. So go out and make the most of it. I look forward to hearing more throughout the day. And if we have a little time, I'd be happy to So questions or comments, is that good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's talk. Yes.
Hi, Mark. What do you see as, what is the largest hurdle to women running for office? Do you think it's the will? Do you think it's the scrutiny? Do you think it's money? What is it? There's not enough women are running. I see the numbers.
I think it's those things and more. I think that, it just, these are they're all personal decisions, but I think that it is true that women will wait to be asked. There is some statistic out there to the effect that women need to be asked or told 9 times to run for office before they actually run, and men don't seem to suffer from that same reservation. And women with incredible backgrounds and skill sets and experiences don't adequately see themselves as suited to run for office for whatever reason. Which is why my point is, if you don't want to run yourself with all your talent and skill and ability, then find somebody who even if they don't know themselves, can do the job and do everything you can to move them forward and get them running for office. And I don't want to see just one woman running for a seat. I want to see multiple women running for a seat. So that is one thing. The other thing is, sure, there's the money and it's a hassle. Nobody likes to raise money, but that's just part of some of this, but not all of this. A lot I think of this is about people who are willing to just sort of put themselves forward, fall flat at times, but engage with people. And I think that now more than ever, what people are looking for in this country are people who are willing to engage, people who demonstrate that they are going to listen to one another and that they're about action. And if there's one thing I know about women who control households and family economies and manage to do 10 things at once, women are about action and they're about delivering. And that's why I think now more than ever, women can have the opportunity to be elected in droves. So I really encourage it because for all the advocacy, decisions get made by people in elected offices a lot of times, right? And if we're not there, we're not going to see the kind of policies informed by the things that we want to see them informed by unless women are running and then winning. Yes?
First, thank you for your wonderful remarks and that call to action here. Could you talk a little bit about the steps that Massachusetts has taken to ensure there are more women on corporate boards?
Sure. My colleague Deb Goldberg, who is our state treasurer, has focused some on this, and I think that we know from some of the statistics the importance of having women on corporate boards. They're actually better, studies show, for company bottom lines, more diverse boards and more boards with greater membership of women in the ranks. So I think that one of the things that I always talk about is just encouraging it. I think that that's part of it, getting our business community to buy into that, to take that seriously. I've worked in terrific partnership with our business organizations from the Chamber to Associated Industries on down the line on a number of fronts, and I think that this is something that more and more of them are listening to and paying attention to. I think that for those of you who are in companies, ask the questions. Anybody with shareholder interest, ask the questions. But if you look at some of what Deb Goldberg has done, she makes it a prominent part of her delivery, and it's certainly something that I support as well.
Are there any resolutions here? I'm from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania just passed a resolution requiring that boards want to do, companies that want to have RFPs in Pennsylvania have to have a certain number of women on their boards. Is there any plans here?
Others may know the answer to this question. I'm not aware that there are any specifically here in Massachusetts, but something to consider. for sure. I mean, I find ways, and I think we can all find ways to support women. I remember early on when a group came into my office to meet with me. I may have told some of you this story before, but it was early on, so people come in and they want to introduce themselves to the new AG and the team. And when they came in, I remember going around the room shaking hands, and then we sat at the table, and I was sitting at one end, and then down the other end was a woman who had not been introduced to me. And we started with a conversation, and I asked who she was, of course, and she was the associate at the firm, which to me signaled that she, in fact, was the one who had done all the work. So I proceeded to direct most of my questions to her, and I think they got the point. We can find ways. We can find ways, but certainly pressing on corporate board membership, that means something. Just like the companies that hire for legal work demand to know who it is that's going to be working on their cases. Another example. Yes?
Maureen, you could speak to one of the obstacles I find women say in terms of being reluctant to run for office or apply for the judgeship or reach to the top is the family, balancing family and career. I know that you've taken measures in your own office, but can you speak to that issue? What do you say to women who say, I can't because I have to do it?
Well, I mean, these are very personal decisions, and everybody has got to be comfortable with the decisions that they make, and I think that critical to all of us being able to get up every day, go to work, and do our job is that we have peace at home, and that we have strong foundational support in whatever form that takes. So I think that's something to take absolutely seriously and respect. That said, women do it all the time, and there are ways, it just happens. There's more flexibility in the workplace. I think about what we've done in our office. Not only did I extend parental leave as part of our program, which has been really terrific, and just as many men are taking advantage of that as women, which is terrific. But through telecommuting and the ability to work remotely or in different places, a lot more is possible. So I'd say don't let that be a barrier. There are any number of men who are going to be out there who have other obligations or interests or other things, and they don't seem to let that get in the way. And again, I just come back to this strong view that I have that we just need women with talents and competencies like nobody's business. And right now, we just don't have them. So it also, I think, is helpful to be able to talk to people who have gone before us and who are in those positions, and talk to them about the realities of what works, what doesn't, and what you can do. And this is a great network to have those conversations in, or to find people from this network to have those conversations. Yes?
Maura, first of all, thank you more than anything for being a tireless champion of what's right, and we really appreciate it. About you. How did you get from where you were to Northeastern? What was the trigger point for you to get into public life?
Well, I knew I wanted to go to law school for a while. I spent a day with a lawyer when I was probably in the 4th grade. And, no, I did. It was one of those enrichment program things. And I knew I wanted to do that. I also knew when I graduated from college that I didn't want to go right away. I wanted to take a couple years off and see a little bit and do a little bit. And so after a couple years away, I ended up coming back here. And I remember actually walking down Huntington Ave to visit Northeastern. I heard of Northeastern from a friend of mine who had gone here. And she clued me into it. And literally, I bumped into Steve Subrin and asked my mom, and he and I shared a couple things. We both had gone to Harvard College, and we both were big Celtics fans, and we just sort of started talking. He took us over to his office, and that really is what sealed the deal for me. And not only did I go here, my brother went here as well, and my sister was an undergrad here, and I really think that this is an institution ahead of its time. I think the co-op program, a huge advantage. I see it every day as an employer. And I just really loved the approach and the ethos of the school. So, with that as my background, some of you know I went on, I clerked, and then I went to WilmerHale, or then Hale and Dorr, for about 8 years, was a business litigator, but ultimately decided that I wanted to pursue my passion and interest in thinking about how I could be a lawyer in a different realm, and that led me to quit and take a job in the AG's office. I didn't know much about the AG's office, to be honest with you, when I left the firm. I thought it would be terrific to have an opportunity to run the Civil Rights Division, and so off I went. That was back in 2007. And I have to say, my first year there, it was hard. It was really hard, and at times, I think about this now, I thought about quitting. So it's hard to believe I'm the AG now. I really But I just say, I tell that story as an example. I think that in careers and experiences, we're all going to go through ups and downs. And for me, it was a challenge. I was moving from the private sector to the public sector. I was moving from defensive litigation to affirmative litigation. And, it was a challenge navigating, but thank God I didn't quit. I loved it, and I came to see the power and the opportunity within that office. We got involved early on. My division in the DOMA challenge. We were dealing with a foreclosure crisis. You see Lillian Morales here. We brought the first civil rights claim against a subprime lender in the country as an AG's office. And, you get to see the office and work, which is what actually led me to quit my job as a bureau chief. I think I reached out to one of my mentors, Sarah Shanahan, who I worked with at Hale and Dorr, to say that I was going to do this, and she, like others, nodded politely and acted in supporting ways, even if they thought I was nuts. And off I went. And I'm so honored and privileged to have this as a job and to work with the people that I work with. And I see, and I get to see through the work of our office every day, in ways large and small, and mostly small. Those are the ways that actually inspire me the most. When we can go back and help a mom who has been discriminated against because she's got a voucher and some landlord doesn't want to deal with that or deal with lead paint. Or we can get after a shady car dealership or somebody who has charged 28% interest on car loans, right? And recover for folks. Where we can enforce laws that ensure clean air and clean water in neighborhoods. I mean, these are not going to be the subject of headlines. But it's great work. So I encourage any of you, if you have even contemplated public interest work that way, or work in an office like ours, don't be afraid to check it out. Yeah.
Again, thank you very much for your service and a wonderful talk this morning. You mentioned women running for office. Do you think that some of those skills could be taught, could be supplemented? Perhaps in a center at Northeastern. Training to be able to help in that process.
Yeah, well, look, I don't overthink it. If you've gone to law school, okay, you understand how to think in a thoughtful way. You understand how to make an argument, even those of you who are transactional, and God bless you. You know how to engage and articulate a position. And as much as anything, people just want people who seem to be clear-headed and clear-minded with something other than gobbledygook and rhetoric. You all have it. Everybody has it in this room. I know that. And it just, some of it comes down to, do you have the desire to be out there? Because I've got to be candid with you, not everybody wants to be a person in front of a crowd. But find yourself to a position where you can support or help somebody in that position. So I think that skill set building around, just, I'm not sure what that would look like actually, because I do begin with a very genuine belief that it is within all of us, actually, given who you are and what you've done. You bring more than, my God, you should see the people running for office. It doesn't seem to be a particular barrier.
Just like a follow-up, women do, but women And so is that something that you can benefit from your peers or other people teaching? The fundraising is a very difficult part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's the opposite.
Well, yeah, there's actually, there's some training about that, how to make those calls, how to talk to people, how to make the ask. It is very uncomfortable. I was so happy, I can appear in a court or advocate on behalf of a client, right? That is like nobody's business, right? Happy doing that. But to advocate on behalf of oneself, I don't think, it doesn't come naturally to me, and it doesn't come naturally to most people. And then it can have to ask people to essentially invest in you, right? It's one thing to go out and raise money for your company or product, right, or fund, but that's a concept that you will get over. I found in my race, I had no experience, which was actually nice. Sometimes it's nice just not overthinking having no experience, just go in blind. But I'll tell you that you get over that because it just is necessarily part of something that you have to do. And like anything, once you do it a few times, that is not an issue. That is not an issue. And I'd be happy to talk further if people have interest. I'm always available to talk, to offer whatever I can offer about my perspective on this. There are also some wonderful organizations out there, whether it's Emerge or other organizations that spend time working with women and training women, and I think it's a really, I think it's incredibly important that if you don't run, find women who will.
Maybe one more, Maura?
Sure.
Can I just add to that there are elected positions that have a very low bar. I'm an elected town meeting member in Arlington, and I got elected with 8 write-in votes. It only takes 10 signatures to actually get on the ballot to run for town meeting. So from there, you can go to school committee, you can do all kinds of things, but start somewhere. Get, like Obama said, get a clipboard, get some signatures, and run for office.
Yeah, I agree. It's great. No, it matters because this is where a lot of the action is, and the action is certainly going to be in the courts over the next few years. For those of you who are able to be involved in amici opportunities or able to take clients pro bono on some of these fronts, know that that is needed. I particularly want to comment on the need for assistance in all the legal services work. There's so many upsetting things that this president has proposed, but one was the zeroing out of funding for legal services. We know how important that is, so now more than ever, if you can find time that way. I think on the immigration front, even though we have been successful in shutting down those travel bans, the effect of that has still been pernicious and pervasive. I know the fear and anxiety that exists in immigrant communities here in Massachusetts in profound ways. I receive calls from folks who are concerned about sending their kids to school for fear of detention or deportation, who don't want to show up for prenatal visits or take their kids in for pediatric visits. Those are reports coming to me from our community health centers and hospitals. So yesterday I sent out guidance to schools and to health centers and hospitals, making clear what ICE is allowed to do and not allowed to do, and as a way to allay fears and debunk some of the misinformation that is understandably out there, given the positions from the federal government. But I just ask for your help. I think now more than ever, in addition to running for office, which I think, sorry, I know this is women in the law, but that is my big point to all of you, run for office. But my second point is and support institutions and demand accountability and share real news and support free press and journalists. It's also to recognize that it's not just women who have been marginalized in profound ways and further disempowered. There are whole segments of communities out there who are, in particular, the last 18 months, and certainly in November, we're feeling really, really lousy. And wherever we can reach out, and if it's as simple as giving a hug or shaking a hand or giving a knowing nod or offering to help family navigate a situation, this is your time. And I think that empowering and supporting those among us who are feeling particularly vulnerable or marginalized is really important to do. That's why I set up the Hate Crimes Hotline. not only did I want us to make sure we were taking in accounts, and there were very real accounts of hate crimes and hateful activity, I should say, in this state following the election. I also wanted to be very clear that as AG with chief law enforcement responsibilities, that we were going to be there to enforce civil rights laws and to protect people in the state. But that is not something limited to our jurisdiction. We all own that responsibility collectively. So enjoy today and keep doing the great work. Follow what we do. We get a lot of information out on our websites, and I encourage you to share that, in particular any of you with college-going kids, or those of you who still have student debt, and I know many do. I've got a student loan assistance unit in my office. We're working right now to try to help families and students who may be facing default or need access to better repayment plans. And we also put out a whole tool online to help families right now assess some of those financial aid award letters that some folks may have received over the last few weeks. So use this as a resource. And if you have any ideas about what we can and should be doing, we call ourselves a people's law firm for a reason. So keep talking to us. Thank you very much.
Aren't we lucky to have Maura with us today? Thank you for your inspirational speech, for making time for us. I know you had many commencements this week and other things, so it's so lovely to share your time with us. And you're doing great work, and we know we're going to see you in other roles going forward, maybe governor, maybe other things. Time to interact with Maura out here out in the lounge, take a brief break, and then we'll be back with panel one. Thank you, Maura Healey. Thank you so much.